guess one of the questions I have, I think everybody's, you know, kind of evolved towards this model and stuff, and it's really a culture change in the schools. So what would you share with us as board members that we could be most supportive of to help that culture change happen? And looking back now, what would be a key point that we need to recognize and be aware of? What?
I think that it's important for the board to be on the same page and supportive of each other. I think that if your board is not in agreement, then you're not going to move the district forward. I think there has to be, I'm not saying that we all agree on everything, we certainly don't. But when it comes to issues like this, we are 100% together.
I wanted to say that one of the most important things that we've been working on is developing leadership capacity throughout the whole district. And so when Michael was talking about his teacher leadership, that is critical to the work that we do in changing the culture. So we've got district leadership all the way down to the teacher leadership, and also student leadership is another critical component. So in order to change the culture, we need to have leadership capacity at every single level, and we need to be aligned and we need to be communicating where it is that we're going. So that's what I think is very critical.
Yeah, and I also think that you can never communicate enough. I mean, every once in a while, I'll bring to the board meeting at the end of the month a statement on school improvement. After talking with the board about what they believe, and I'll hand it out, people have a chance to edit it. And then we will put that into the record. So everyone from teachers to patrons to the administrators, everyone knows this is where the board stands on school improvement. And it's a communication tool that's very effective. Because when you go into a classroom then, the teachers will know exactly where the board stands. And we're here as not, you know, because I think one of the things I learned as a school board member, is just a quick aside, is I did not realize the impact I had when I walked into that classroom. I see this as, I walk into the classroom, I'm a dad. I help my wife with field trips. I mean, it's kind of like I'm just one of the crowd. No, you're not. You're there, and they think you're evaluating everything from how sharp the pencils are to how clean the floor is to how well they do their instructional practice. And so you have to be very reassuring that you're there as a resource to support them. And that has to be communicated at a board meeting so that you can keep that clear in everyone's mind, that you are there to support them, that you are there to be a resource for them, that you are the experts in the field. What we are doing is trying to find the best way to do this to help you become a better expert. And that is a very important element of this. I mean, kind of the practice I do professionally, and so does Karen, because we've talked about this, is that you praise in public and you basically punish in private. You bring people together, and in private behind closed doors you say, you know, you really need to change this. So you really practice that. And I think that's one of these ways that you do this cultural shift, is that we acknowledge that it's hard. Don't become, you know, in a sense, don't become the expert yourself. Bring a book. These people, this is the best practice. That's why I shared some of those resources with you, and that's why that resource book is, that sheet there, is because that's what will help you, is to say this is an industry, in a sense, an industry-wide standard. This is not just what we want, this is what's best for everyone. So I think that was very helpful. That's just my point of view. I don't know what Michael or Whitney feel, but that's kind of how I feel.
So when you did this as a board, did you go in there, did you have the principals and the superintendent on board with you? Or was it the board that said, okay, this needs to be done? Did you have resistance from the superintendent and the principals? Or how did you start that?
Well, I think Jamie could probably answer that question. He's remained kind of silent in this.
Well, I'm desperately trying to video this entire thing, just on the fly that it happened. Yeah, of course we had we did have resistance. Originally, what the idea was is that we were concerned about our math grades, and so we wanted to try a small-scale experiment to see what we could actually pull off in this area. Ed is he's a lot more sensitive than I am about these issues. I tend to be a bully, and I'm fully aware of it. But Ed walked in to feel out the waters, how things were working with mathematics at the high school, We ended up hiring a consultant to help us out with mathematics. So it was a slow step. Essentially what we're doing is we're testing every single piece of the process to see how it was we're supposed to do it. This was not a short process. This is something that has taken us approximately 5 years to get to this point, because we started at virtually the moment that we walked in.
And I think to add on to that, when the board came to me and said, we want you to do this, I did research. And I'm just a research guy. So I went and I saw what Mecklenburg was doing in North Carolina, because they've done this before, what school districts in New York were doing, Southern California, other places took that and said, okay, how does this relate to Parkrose and where it's at? And then we came, and literally I gave you what I came to the board with, was that layout, with these are our goals, this is who's on the committee, this is how often we meet, da-da-da. So everyone, I mean, communication is the thing. And so you come, and then you're willing to, but that's how that happened. And it was a slow process, but you have to be reassuring. And I think the committee is one of those ways where, you know, I know Whitney's done this. She goes back and says, no, it isn't that bad. These guys really want to help us in the past. You know, and it really, they can be some of your best advocates for change, because it's coming from one of their own. So when you form this committee, the makeup, not only just the positions, but the personalities are unbelievably important. They could be your key. Having that one right teacher on this committee that is respected by their peers and communicate back to them could be your key to making this thing work.
It's also interesting in bargaining, by the way, so that you're asking maybe for certain things as board members or principals, and when you've had some understanding around professional science, and it does become less of a battle, there is more of a shared vision, and actually, without going into detail since we only have 5 more minutes, it was key to bargaining in our school district. So I just thought I would mention that. This gentleman had a question.
And deciding, like, what are the most important places I need to push. When I see that goals aren't articulated well enough, I don't see those goals really showing any student learning in the classroom, those are the points where teachers know where I'm going to be pushing. But at the same time, I let them work out some of the logistics that sometimes are really hard for me to keep my hands off of. But it's just kind of that artful design of leadership.
I think if you're a board member, the communication key that Ed's talking about transcends to the public as well and your patrons. We had a very transparent process. The Northwest Regional Math Audit, we didn't hide. Our public knew exactly what was going on. And I think that communication piece needs to go to your families, to your voters. They need to see you as a leadership that is transparent in school improvement and instructional greatness.
I'm afraid we're out of time for this session. I think the panel may stay here after the session, but I know there's a 3:30 OSBA meeting that some folks have to get to. So I'm going to thank you all for coming this afternoon. Remind you once again to please log on to the OSBA website and to provide some comments and feedback about the session. That is incredibly valuable.
Thank you.